Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live portion of the Fine Arts Center's Ask a Curator participation. My name is Blair Huff. I'm the curatorial assistant at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College. I work closely with the two curators on staff to help put on our exhibitions. So planning those exhibitions and then executing them. It's a real privilege to get to do what we do. So we are so excited to be here with you today. I have my colleagues Katya and Michael, who will also be hopping on with me to answer your questions.
Hey everyone, Michael LaRusso, Associate Registrar here at the Fine Arts Center. As Blair mentioned, it's such a privilege to work at a museum, especially in the collection like I do. As a registrar, I like to explain it by saying registrar equals registration. So keeping in mind art and objects, everything that comes through the door needs to be registered. So that's one of my main tasks for the permanent collection, as well as exhibitions that we take on as loans. I oversee some of the databasing as well, in addition to some collections management tasks. So looking forward to chatting with the rest of y'all today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi everybody, my name is Katya. I am the curator of contemporary art, and I'm the newest member of the Fine Arts Center.
Yay!
Yay! And for the last 10 years, I've been based in Chicago, so I'm just extra thrilled to be here and to join such a stellar team. And as a curator, I'm in charge of researching and proposing and managing exhibitions, and also caring for the permanent collection. So excited to be in conversation with Blair and Michael and answering any questions you all have for us.
So throughout this session, please just submit questions, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're seeing this stream, just let us know and we'll try to answer your questions.
Yeah, we're watching everywhere, so we'll try to answer as many as we can. To start us off, our first question is, what does your typical day look like? Michael, Katya, do you want to tackle this one first?
Sure, I'll start. So one of my favorite parts of museum work is that no 2 days are the same, especially here at the Fine Arts Center, where we have such an incredible collection and a robust exhibition schedule. So a typical day generally starts with emails, of course, and then looking over the calendar for the tasks that are either that day or the rest of the week. So this could include some exhibition-related topics or activities. It could relate to collections management type stuff, so working directly with the art and the objects in our permanent collection. It could be object photography. It could be up in the galleries, maybe working with other colleagues putting on an exhibition, condition reporting, other types of photography related stuff. So it's one of my favorite parts of museum work, is that no 2 days are the same. There's just so much, such a variety of work that we all get to complete.
Yeah, I completely agree with Michael. The thing that I like most is that every day is a little bit different. And like Michael said, a lot, like many office workers, we do a lot of meetings and emails. But I also get to spend time reading, researching, looking at art, and talking to artists. That's maybe my favorite part. When it was still possible to travel, I used to also go to different cities and see exhibitions and meet with scholars and artists. And maybe my favorite part of the job is when we're installing an exhibition. That's maybe my favorite time. Blair, what about you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I think every day is a little bit different, which makes the work really exciting. Back when we could meet face to face, some of my favorite things that we got to do were go do like an in-person studio visit with different artists. I think that's really lovely to be able to, it always feels kind of like you're walking inside someone's brain when you're going into their studio space. So you get to see a lot of really interesting work that they're doing, and you get to talk to them about what they're thinking about, which is great. I think a lot of people also don't realize that we work on a very long time scale. So we'll plan exhibitions years in advance. So depending on where we are in that, 3 to 5 year timeline, we could be, really in the thick of it, like in a crunch mode, trying to get an exhibition installed, or it could be some like more leisurely research moments.
That's actually a really good point, because we often multitask, right? There's often multiple projects that we're working on at once. And then sometimes it's about dealing with what's coming up right away. And at the same time, we're sort of planning 2 years out for future projects. Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of multitasking.
Yeah. A lot of plates in the air at once.
What's our next question, Blair?
Let's see. I think it'll scroll across the screen. Great. What is the most interesting thing you've seen on the back of a painting or artwork? This is a great question.
How about you start?
Michael, I think you probably have the best answer to this because you get to work so hands-on with the objects. I think for me, just getting able to see the back of like a John Singer Sargent painting is amazing. Like, a lot of the times there will be stamps indicating where a piece has been exhibited. So getting to kind of go through its history on the back of an object, I think is really, really fascinating.
Yeah,
but I want to hear Michael's answer for sure.
I'll echo your point too, because sometimes the reverses of paintings are definitely more interesting than the front. Just saying that. So one example would be, so we've received a digitization grant. So we're in progress of digitizing the collection, which is going on our e-museum. Quick little plug. But one of the works from Walt Kuhn, who is an American modernist painter, it was still life on the front, pretty uninteresting still life, but a portrait flipped upside down on the reverse. So a double-sided canvas. This was a total surprise to me, so we did photograph both of them, and you'll see both of those sometime on the website soon. But as Blair mentioned, historically speaking, a lot of museums, as they accepted loans or sent their paintings out, would put a little sticker on the reverse of a painting. So that helps with provenance, which is location or location-related type stuff. So the back of the paintings will sometimes have 10 plus stickers, 12 stickers. Some of the Sargent works that we have lent out can have, maybe a dozen plus stickers. But that helps kind of piece the entire history of that painting together. So it's interesting looking at the reverse of works on works of art.
Totally. Katya, what's the most interesting thing you've seen on the back of a painting or artwork?
I can't think of anything super specific, but same as you all, we use it a lot for research and trying to figure out where a work has been shown or who's owned the work. Like Michael's saying, provenance is like really helpful to start piecing together that history. It becomes about the object's history rather than what's represented in the object oftentimes. So it's just like a completely different kind of research. I do love when you find other artist names on the, like if another artist has owned the work, which has happened before, because it shows you that artists are collecting each other too, or exchanging works. Or what Michael reminded me, what you were saying about like looking at the back of the Walt Kuhn. I've worked on a painting before that we actually, I've worked at the Art Institute in Chicago, and there was a conservation department, or they have a conservation department, and they were able to scan the painting and see that a work was made on like posters, like literally like pulled down from the wall and painted on top of it from the 1920s, I think. So it's like, it's really interesting when you start to really research the work and the material of the work and like look at all sides, not just what's sort of on top, what you start to find out.
Museum science is so cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, great comments. Thank you. Okay. Do art curators secretly wish they had dinosaurs? Katya, I'll let you answer this one first.
I mean, I guess my answer to that is, doesn't everybody wish they had dinosaurs? I don't know if that's specific to art curators. I don't know.
I'm gonna just go with yes, just because, you know. And, so if you all check out the Instagram stories that we have posted, I mentioned we have one fossil in the permanent collection, and it's a mastodon kneecap. So not quite dinosaurs per se, but we have one fossil in the collection. Just FYI for those watching.
Cool. I think I get all of my my dinosaur fossil fulfillment from playing Animal Crossing. So that checks it off my list.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question is, what exhibition of your past, either as a patron or as a museum employee, had the greatest impact on you as a person? This is a great question. Does anyone want to go first?
I can, sure. So in undergrad, I studied Native American art history, and one of the artists that my professor highlighted was Virgil Ortiz. And we had an exhibition of Virgil's work across our 3 largest galleries about 2 years ago. So that was pretty impactful to, one, learn about it at the undergraduate level, but then actually be the registrar for that exhibition, which included maybe a half dozen lenders. So as a registrar, it's my duty to bring in art and objects safely to the museum, as well as transport them out. So it was really nice working directly with the artist, who was one of the lenders. So I got to meet Virgil pretty intimately, which was pretty impactful for my career in museums.
Yeah, Virgil was an artist in residence at the Fine Arts Center as well. So his being here was amazing.
Yeah.
I think this is such a tough question for me because there's been so many shows that have been so important for me, both seeing them and working on them. I like cannot pick one, so maybe if I'm just going to take the liberty of sharing 2. One is the most recent show that I curated at the University of Chicago with an artist whose name is Harold Mendez. And Harold is a LA-based artist of Colombian and Mexican descent who made an installation for the Logan and also used a chimu pot, or I should say a 3D reproduction of a chimu pot that's currently housed in the Field Museum in Chicago. And he put in a speaker and sort of piped sound through the pot and through the gallery space. That was like a found sound, but that it was all about sort of identity and anxiety and sort of like belonging. And I think working with him on that project just really expanded my mind about ways to engage with artifacts of that nature, and especially artifacts that, you know, we don't know that much about them, in part because of the way they were collected. And to have a contemporary artist sort of engage with it in that way was like deeply impactful for me. And the other show, also fairly recent, was the Chicago Architecture Biennial, which was directed by Yesomi Umolu. And it was a team of curators, and they just did an amazing job sort of expanding the idea of architecture to include, as it should, you know, social, cultural, political aspects of life, and sort of engaged a lot of different kind of artists to think about architecture and land use and history in the ways that sort of made really apparent that architects are not the only people who think about space too, right? So that was a really important exhibition for me. And just to see how somebody takes a premise and like expands it in really powerful ways.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, since you picked 2, Katya, I'm gonna also say 2 because it's too hard to choose. Yeah. The first one I went to, I think when I was a student at Colorado College, they had an exhibition at the Met that was Impressionist paintings in conjunction with a huge collection of dresses and clothing from the period. And it was almost uncanny, like the fact that you could be looking at a painting and then see not a replica, but an actual dress that has survived from that period that was pictured in the painting. So that was one of those museum moments where I was like, do they have a time machine? This is crazy. And then I think on a more personal level, the most impactful exhibition for me has definitely been one that I curated with the Denver-based artist Becky Waring Steele. She works on a project called Utopia, where she has real life people in the world apply to be citizens of a kind of real utopia, but that utopia is a 1/160th scale model. And so all of the people that she works with, she renders as tiny diorama figurines and then places them in this utopia landscape. So working with her was amazing. And I think it really reinforced the generosity of spirit that so many artists have when you're promising to take their work and present it. Like, that's a big leap of faith on their part. So Becky was just a joy to work with, because she brought so much and was so trusting of us as an institution to implement her vision.
That was a fun exhibition.
Okay, our next question is, what types of issues have come up when dealing with assemblage-based art? Artists like Jason Rhodes, etc., where traditional conservation isn't really in play. Great question.
I'm gonna let y'all take that.
I'm not sure if there's something specific that the person asking has in mind, but I would say conservation always comes in play, regardless of how unusual the material is. Even when it's almost, it seems like not physical, like it's ephemeral in some nature. I think in terms of issues, it's always about logistics and trying to figure out how to build whatever it is you're building in your space, and while still following all the rules of your institution, and making it, physically possible. I'm thinking of one project I worked on a few years ago where the artist wanted to build a pool in the gallery space.
Oh, wow.
We had to talk with engineers and some contractors, and we figured it out, and it was possible and made it work. So I think it's mostly about having lots of conversations and getting people to think with you about how to make it happen.
And time to plan.
Yeah.
That sounds like a huge project, Katya. Did the pool change like your institution's humidity levels and that kind of thing?
So the gallery space didn't have those like, it was an open space. So it was more because of that, we had more flexibility with installing it. But yes, it changed a lot about the physical location. Yeah.
Cool. And I guess I should explain, at museums, when you're caring for so many different objects, you have to remain within really strict levels for your temperature and your humidity and light levels as well, because all of those factors play into the deterioration of art objects. That's part of the reason why this is such a great question, because assemblage pieces often include so many different elements. Like, you might have a painted portion, and some paintings are fairly hardy and can withstand a lot of light. But if that painting is also, that assemblage also has like a paper element to it, those are much more fragile and need to be treated with much lower light levels. So definitely things to keep in mind.
That's a really good point, Blair.
Contemporary art, just in general, has a lot of mixed material, mixed media type. So it is difficult to care for more contemporary pieces of art, but Katya is very excited to begin curating some of it. So, which causes us in the collections registration department to really think through some of these accession questions on assemblage-based art.
Totally. Great question. Thank you. Okay. Our next question is, do any of you collect anything personally?
Yeah.
I can start us off. So I have collected artwork as a student from my friends who were making their art at that time. So most of my art is student artwork. But I do have one piece of art that I bought as like my big girl art collection. And that was to commemorate my exhibition that I mentioned before, Utopia. So I actually have a piece by Becky Waring Steele that
Cool.
has a place of honor on my mantle.
And I have art throughout my home, but I wouldn't call it a collection. It's not the the highest quality. I do have 5 or 6 small little contemporary Mexican pots from Mata Ortiz, northern Mexico. So small little ceramic vessels I have sitting on my mantle. That's a collection, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is it's a maybe not sensitive question for curators, but something we try to be like mindful about.
Yeah.
But I will say that I do often buy artist books, in part because they're fairly, or usually can be more accessible. So places like Printed Matter in New York or other stores, will have really varying price points of artist books that are published in multiples. So there's like, 200 to 1,000, depending on the book, copies of it. So I do enjoy artist books a lot.
Okay. Our next question, have you ever had a paranormal event or feeling when working with such ancient objects?
I would refer to both of you because I don't work so much with ancient objects.
That's a story. So my previous place of employment was in Southwestern archaeology. I worked at a museum with 3 million archaeological objects. So it sounds big, but we're talking about bags of potsherds. So 3 million objects just in general, but these are all prehistoric in nature, so quite old. And I don't know about a paranormal event, but definitely odd noises. And this could just be the building, creaking and pipes and whatnot, but definitely several noises that I have heard throughout collection storage areas, not at the FAC though. So no paranormal events for me here.
Yeah, I don't think I've experienced any sort of paranormal event or feeling at the Fine Arts Center. Although when you're, I will agree, when you're down in the basement, it could kind of feel a little creepy, especially if you're kind of.
That's where I'm at now.
Yeah, where you are right now. A lot of museums are in older buildings, so there very well could be some haunted museums out there, but I don't think ours is. Maybe. Who knows? Okay, next question. Which object in your collection best encapsulates 2020? I love this question, and I have no idea what an answer would be.
I love this question too, but what object though, Blair or Katya? Like what, something like kind of sad or lonesome, or I'm looking at a painting over here of a woman just reading, very kind of dimly lit, quiet, but I don't know. What
Yeah,
else?
I feel like I'm still learning the collection, so this will have to be a to be determined answer for me.
We might have to make like an Instagram post just for this and do some more thinking on it.
Yeah.
But great question. Okay, our next one is, what is your favorite piece in the FAC collection? Why does it speak to you?
Blair, do you want to start?
This one is a little bit like the exhibition question. There are just too many good options to really pick just one. I think for me, my two I'm gonna do two. My two favorites are probably the Frederica Antonio Eye Dazzler vessel. Michael, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It is this beautiful ceramic piece where the artist has made a kind of grid work. It's kind of hard to describe, actually, but she does it all by hand, and the line work that she does kind of, I don't know, it almost shimmers to the eye because it's so tiny and so intricate. So the level of detail and care that she brings to that object, it just blows me away.
And there's a photo on our e-museum if y'all want to check it out.
Yes, we should. Maybe we can post that in the comments or something. But please do go check out our e-museum, because I actually think both of the objects that I'm going to list as my top favorites are in e-museum. So you can take a look and see what I'm talking about. My other one, and this is kind of a cop-out, but because I don't know, I feel like so many people love this piece at the Fine Arts Center. But it's the portrait of Elsie Palmer by John Singer Sargent. I worked pretty extensively on the exhibition that kind of celebrated the painting's return to the Fine Arts Center from being on loan to Ida Moat, where the painting was actually painted by Sargent. And through the process of researching that painting for the exhibition, I feel like Elsie's like a distant aunt or something. Like I feel like she's a part of my family now, just because I got to know so much about her life, and that painting in particular, I think is pretty great.
And a fun fact about that painting, so there's a character in the Harry Potter series that is modeled after Elsie Palmer. Her name is Serafina Bones. If you go Google that, you'll find a replica of the painting, but in Harry Potter style. So fun fact.
Cool.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's some good behind the scenes knowledge there.
Sure. So as a registrar, right, we have that access to all this behind the scenes type knowledge and information. My favorite object, though, would be more broadly a collection. So our archaeology collection here is pretty stellar. We have several pieces of material that are organic in nature. So a sandal that is 1,500 years old, or a basket that's 800 years old. So I like the older objects and of the archaeology collection.
And for me, I would say I'm not seasoned enough yet to have a favorite object, but I will say the one I've been most interested in is the Marisol sculpture of John Wayne. I think Marisol is an incredibly fascinating artist. She's very transnational, moved around a lot, was very involved with the pop scene in New York, knew Andy Warhol. But I learned recently too that she sort of started making these type of wooden sculpture carvings because she was inspired after seeing a pre-Columbian exhibition of wooden carvings. So and she's interesting too. She often sort of pokes fun in her sculptures. She often represents herself. She does like self-portraits as a way of poking a little bit and like interrogating class and status and identity. So I think that John Wayne falls squarely within that, like, what is, what's this all about? And I love the way that she sort of uses, like, this maybe goes back to our assemblage conversation, but the way she often employs many different kinds of materials in her work and brings those together and creates like multiple, almost in this like cubist way, creates multiple viewpoints, and she'll flatten some things and make things others three-dimensional. I'm just really fascinated by her practice.
And if you're joining us from Facebook, Dory, one of our colleagues, is sending some links through the e-museum for Marisol and the Eye Dazzler jar. So,
oh, thanks, Dory. Okay. Thank y'all for your answers. Let's see. I wonder what our next question is.
I'm looking over at the Facebook comments from my friend Danielle, and no, I would not wear the sandal even if it was an option.
Don't touch the art, is what Michael's saying. I think that was a question from a previous year for Ask a Curator, which was, do y'all secretly go and actually touch the art behind the scenes? And the answer is no.
No, we do not. Let's see, waiting on some questions, taking a look at comments. Y'all have that email pulled up with extra questions. Let's see.
Oh, I think I see another question from our comments if we want to take that one real quick. This question says, what is the most awe-stricken experience you have had with an artifact? Was it very old? Was it very beautiful? Maybe was it morbid in a way? Just curious. Another great question. These are all good.
Yeah, so Blair, you'll remember this from the L.C. Palmer exhibition. There was the brass walnut elephant.
Yeah.
So that was one of L.C. Palmer's childhood toys, I want to say, or something like that. But
so it's actually a really mysterious object. It was found in her possession, and we know, well, I shouldn't say we know, but it was kind of a linchpin for the exhibition because we had so many different theories about it, but ultimately her relationship to that object, you know, is kind of lost to time. We have no record of someone giving it to her or why she kept it. We just know that it was found in her possession.
So things like that are maybe 100 years old at this point, that connection to the human experience that was might not have been a toy of hers per se, but it was playful, it was fun. It could have been something that she used, played with, experienced, loved.
Yeah, I loved that piece, especially because, so it's a walnut that has these, I think they were brass, they were some kind of metal additions to make it look like the walnut was the body of an elephant. And so it was a really sweet, kind of playful piece. And I think that's why it was so compelling, is it felt like there was a story there that we couldn't quite capture.
So I have a question for both of you, being curators. How do you come up with ideas for exhibitions?
Ooh, Katya, do you want to take that one on?
So for me, it's a lot of research and talking to people and visiting with artists and doing studio visits. And I mean, for contemporary exhibitions, it's a lot of just meeting with people and seeing what their project is about and how it's developing. But I'm sorry, I want to jump back to the like awe-stricken moment, because I have an answer for that, sort of on the other aspect of that timeline, which is that I had the chance to courier an artwork, meaning I had to accompany it from Chicago to Basel, Switzerland. And it was a work by Sam Gilliam. And I was there to install it in Basel with the artist Sam Gilliam there. It's like watching his work being installed, and it was one of the drape pieces. If you're familiar with his work, it's loose canvas filled with color, like streams of paint. And this work was draped over two sort of hobby horses. And so getting to install that work, this sort of seminal work from the second half of the 20th century, with the artist present, was just a really inspiring, important moment for me. Yeah. Sorry, back to ideas for exhibitions, Blair.
Yeah, I think I think for me, something that's really, and I think I've mentioned this earlier in the recording, um, is just the studio visit as a source of inspiration and a kind of like the beginning of the kernel of an idea. Um, Obviously, you have artists that you might reach out to and are really compelled by their work. And I think it's really when you get to see it in person. Obviously, we're all object people, so I think we all think that the object itself is really important. And I would just reiterate that, thinking that those ideas for exhibitions come about, for me at least, in actually seeing the objects and getting to talk to the artist, for sure.
Let's see, we've got a few more minutes. Send some more comments, y'all, people out there in the world. Let's see, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Will hidden objects rotate into public view at some point? I don't quite know what we mean by hidden, but if they're talking about the objects that are in storage, which is what I take it to mean, it's all kind of dependent on what the exhibitions calendar looks like and what sort of exhibitions or object rotations are coming down the I've forgotten the end of that phrase, coming down the pike, maybe.
Yeah, so with the permanent collection of nearly 20,000 objects, it's tough to have a lot on display, of course, because gallery space is a finite amount. So rotations do occur with our curator's guidance, and it would be my job as a registrar to help oversee the movement of that object, as well as the prep work for it to go on display. If it needs to be cleaned, if it needs to be conserved, that'll all be identified in advance.
And that's a really good point, because sometimes the reason things are not on display is because of material concerns. So works on paper, for example, can only be, depending on the work, right? But we say roughly about 3 months at a time, and then it sort of needs to go off of you to preserve the life of the object. And then sometimes just some work needs to be done to ensure that, the object is taken care of. So there's a lot of things to consider when we do rotations.
Yeah, and I think something that, to expand on your point, Katya, with objects like works on paper, after they've met their threshold for how much you can have them on display, they have to go back and rest for quite a long period of time, really. Okay, how do you come up with ideas for exhibitions? So I think we've covered that mostly, but did anyone else have anything else to add to that one?
So as a registrar, I'm not part of the exhibition kind of concept, the conceptual type stuff, but I am looped in early on with meetings to identify any loans or, like I just mentioned, the preparatory work for the permanent collection objects. So curators basically will come up with that idea, and please correct me, Katya and Blair. You'll come up with the idea, present a checklist to us in the collections department, and then we will confirm or deny some objects if they're safe enough to go on view. And there could be several reasons why they might not be able to go on view. But it's a team effort, definitely a collaborative team effort for us. And yeah.
Okay, our next question. Have you ever thought about installing a native plant or native agriculture installment in the land around the FAC? Maybe medicinal plants that were used in traditional ceremonies? And I'll answer first if y'all don't mind, because yes, I have definitely thought about this. We hosted a traveling exhibition called Desert Art Lab Ecologies of Resistance in 2018, I think. That was curated by Andrea Hanley at Mokna in Santa Fe. And the artists responsible for it, they're a collaborative called Desert Art Lab. They're based in Pueblo, Colorado. And their work really revolves around these ideas of the indigenous plants and the indigenous foodways that have been lost to colonization and the effects of colonialism over the years. And so their exhibition that we hosted, they included these botanical samples of like amaranth and cholla cactus and all of the plants that they're growing in their site in Pueblo. They're reclaiming this piece of land that had been used as a kind of thoroughfare for quite a while, and so they're using native indigenous plants to bring that plot back to life in certain ways. So yes, I have thought about it. We haven't done it yet, though. I would love to see that happen.
So a little plug why that might not be the most wise decision is that pests and rodents, of course. So we do have beautiful landscaping around the building, but flowers and things with seeds and whatnot will attract pests and rodents, and we don't want them into the museum. Don't want them coming in.
No, we do not. Yeah. So as y'all can see, there's a lot of creative problem solving that goes into this kind of thing. I'm reminded, Katya, of your project where you installed a pool that you were talking about.
Yeah. I feel like my answer to that question is always deferring to the artist and trying to see what they come up with and trying to make it happen, and trying to work within the bounds of the institution and making sure that no pests or or rats come into or endanger any of the work at the same time.
So our I should make a plug, because in front of the when we're able to visit Colorado College's campus once more, there actually is a garden of native to Colorado plants that you can go explore in front of the Southwest Studies Holbert House. I know the facilities and grounds departments at Colorado College are super conscientious and really think about those kind of things. So
we're getting to the end of our live portion here. And we're
yes.
One last question. Oh, tough.
Describe your job with a song title.
Oh no.
That's a hard one.
I'm asking a lot of visual people for songs. This is tough.
I don't like this question.
Yeah, y'all might get about 30 seconds of us kind of scratching our heads.
Oh my gosh. Send us another question.
We're stumped. All right, here's an easier one for us. What's your favorite museum to visit other than your own?
So being from Chicago, I grew up going to some of the big museums there, and I would say the Fuel Museum is definitely my favorite to visit. Growing up and seeing Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, was just amazing to see that as often as I wanted, and all the Chicago museums are pretty nice, as Katya knows, but Art Institute, Field Museum are going to be the top favorites.
Yeah, I would echo that and say at the moment it's the Art Institute. I mean, I'm biased because I've worked there, but they just have so many different kinds of objects, and everything from ancient Islamic to sort of hyper contemporary works, and just a lot of different perspectives who curate that space and then do education, and also just a lot of different people coming together to present a lot of different art, and it's just so wonderful.
My answer is honestly the museum in whatever city I happen to be in. I will go to any museum and have a good time.
That's a great answer, Blair.
Yeah, you can probably tell museum people, because going to the museum, if you're ever visiting another city, is probably top on our lists. So
Yeah. Well, thank you too for joining me in this conversation.
yeah,
We had a good time.
Thanks to all of you, our viewers, for adding your questions and comments. You'll probably see a little bit more from us in social media today, but I do believe this concludes our live portion.
So
thanks, Katya and Michael.
Send questions in on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're viewing this as well. So, bye everyone.
Bye.